Hello and welcome to Crumbs and Doilies in Soho. Now, recently I gave you one of my favourite new recipes, which was for Biscoff S'mores Brownie, and you guys loved it. You guys seem to really enjoy Biscoff or Speculoos related recipes, and every time we put a picture of this next recipe up on our Instagram feed on Crumbs and Doilies, you guys are always asking, can I have the recipe? Please give me the recipe! Just like that. So, I'm going to give you the recipe for Biscoff cupcakes. So we actually call this a Biscoff pie cupcake in the shop, and that's because we give it a buttery biscuit base. You all know I'm a massive fan of the buttery biscuit base, but this is a buttery Biscoff base. There's a lot of buzz going on here. It's quite difficult to say quickly, but I'm rolling with it. So to do that, I'm going to mix the usual kind of things. I've got some Biscoff crumbs, I've got some melted butter, I've also got some golden syrup. I'll put all the measurements in the description box below. I'm just going to add it all together and mix it all up. So as usual, what we're looking for is a kind of damp sand, something that will kind of hold itself together if squeezed, but nothing that would just like ooze butter and syrup out if squeezed. And if you're having trouble finding golden syrup, then corn syrup and honey even will work in this recipe. So don't despair. I think we're about there. So now we just need to put a tablespoon of this mixture into each of our cupcake cases. And once your buttery biscuit crumbs are packed tightly into the bottom, I just use the little rolling pin for that, you can get on with making the batter. So I'm just going to put those to one side and start by mixing my ingredients together. So I've got 125 grams of self-raising flour, and then I've also got my sugars. I've got 100 grams of caster sugar and 25 grams of dark brown sugar. And I like to push that through the sieve with a spoon just because the dark brown sugar can be a bit sticky. But before I do that, I've also got 1/4 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda and a good pinch of salt. So now I'll just work that through the sieve. I've also got 125 grams of soft unsalted butter and 2 large eggs. And then just pop that onto your mixer or just onto your table if you're just using a hand whisk. And that just needs to be beat together for about a minute until it's really well combined. I like to do it on a medium speed. Once it's had a minute, you can then turn the speed right down and add 1.5 tablespoons of whole milk. And then just turn the speed up and beat it for about another 30 seconds. I think it's broken. Alright, that is that. So my batter's ready. My cases are ready with the buttery biscuit crumbs all packed down in the bottom. So all that remains is to distribute my batter evenly. You can do this any way you like. Ice cream scoops, piping bags. I like to use spoons, as you know. Whatever gets it in there the quickest. And as usual, these need to be baked at 170 degrees C if you're using a fan assisted oven. If you're not, then Google it. And I normally bake them for 20 to 22 minutes, but sometimes with the buttery biscuit base it can take a little bit longer, so make sure you check them with your finger or even with a skewer. So now that my cakes are cooled down, I'm going to get on with making the filling. And this is just a really simple filling. You could fill it with Biscoff if you wanted, but that might be a little bit too Biscoffy. So I'm going to do some lightly whipped cream with some Biscoff spread in. And don't forget that the Biscoff spread might be called something else in your country. Some places, like a generic word, would be cookie spread. So keep an eye out for that if you're not having any luck finding the Lotus spread. But I've got 100 grams of double cream here, and I'm going to add, this is basically a really heaped teaspoon of Biscoff spread. So that didn't take very long to whip up to a kind of soft floppy peak consistency. You don't want it to be too stiff because it can go a little bit woolly inside, and that's not very pleasant. But for now, pop your cream filling into a piping bag, make some holes in your cupcakes using an apple core or something similar, and then fill them up with your yummy cream. Now it's assembly time, but also we're missing a vital ingredient, and that is the topping. So feel free to use any kind of buttercream you want. Obviously, I've got lots and lots of recipes on my channel, but the one that we do here at the shop is Swiss meringue buttercream Biscoff flavoured. So I'll put the link to my Swiss meringue buttercream recipe in the description box below. You want to make a half batch of that for 12 cupcakes, and then add 150 grams of the Biscoff spread to this lovely silky Swiss meringue buttercream. And I like to just heat up the Biscoff spread a little bit, not until it's warm, otherwise it's going to melt your buttercream. It just makes it a little bit easier to incorporate. Once that's nicely smooth and silky and incorporated, then you can get on with decorating. So I'm just gonna decorate my cakes with this lovely buttercream, give it a little drizzle with Biscoff, and then finish it off with a biscuit. And that is the finished Biscoff pie cupcake, which I'm not going to eat because I'm going to put these downstairs in the shop so that you guys can have some. Plus, I've eaten my fair share of Biscoff pie cupcakes in my time. And rest assured, they're absolutely delicious. And the best thing is, in the shop, we also do vegan versions. So come along to the shop this weekend and there'll be either regular or vegan versions in the shop all weekend. So go nuts. I'll be back next week at the usual time. So make sure you tune in for that. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do, and make sure you click on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads, especially because I do the odd random upload. You don't want to miss that. So I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.